Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So today we're going to continue what we were doing in the previous classes, which are the boxes in the 80 most frequently used words in the Quran. And we finished already until box 27. So today hopefully we'll finish 3 boxes. And box 27, again, we're still with the different irregular or regular verbs that we are doing. Yet one thing I must admit, in the box, it's really important to mention that those are not the roots of that verb. So this is really important to mention that this is not actually the root, because the hamza right here is actually an addition as well, which would mean right here absara, the root of it is actually basara and not absara. Same thing. Ahsana, the root of it is hasan, not ahsan. The root of it is kharaja, dakhala, raja'a, arsala, asrafa, sarafa, aslama, salima, ashraka, sharaka, asbaha, صباح, أصلح, صلح. So all those are not the roots, but the hamza right here would actually have some new additions and new meanings, which, for example, أصبح would mean entered in morning, or here aslama would mean entered in silm or salima, which would mean entered in peace or entered in submission. And arja'a, meaning that there can be the hamza right here can mean to enter into something, and could also mean that there was some kind of a bilateral two-sided work, meaning that there was a bilateral agreement, there was a bilateral two-sided conversation or two-sided work. So just to keep that in mind. It can have other meanings, but just to say the most important. So right here, and we're still looking at the patterns. Af'ala, that's the pattern in where we're talking about a past, and the present tense for it / future tense for it, yuf'al. So what you're going to be doing is that the beginning of that verb, you're going to be adding a ya onto it with a dhamma, and you're going to put a sukoon on the fa, on the fa of the verb, which is right here, yuf'al. So let's see the pattern and how it will sound. So af'ala is the past of it, absara, and the present, yubsir. Ahsana, yuhsin. Akhraja, yukhrij. Notice we're putting a kasra. Akhraja, yukhrij. Adkhala, or adkhala, yudkhil. Arja'a, yurji'. Arsala, yursil. Asrafa, yusrif. Aslama, yuslim. Notice that pattern right there, from a past tense to a present tense. It's going to be sounding exactly the same, in where the only difference is that you're adding a u to bring about that present form. You're putting a sukoon on the fa of the verb, and you're putting a kasra on the ayn of the verb. And remember, the ayn of the verb, we talked about that before, and we said that this would be equivalent to the fa of the verb. This would be equivalent, the sa here is equivalent to the ayn of the verb, and the lam of the verb in this situation is the ra. So we're basically making it a pattern. So you could see this pattern right there. Let's see the pattern if it were to be an imperative form. Imperative form, af'il. Absara would be the past. Absir. Now you're giving an imperative, asking the person to perform that verb that we have right there. Absir. Ahsana, ahsin. Giving me the imperative form. Akhraja, akhrij. Adkhala, adkhil. Arja'a, arji'. Arsala, arsil. Asrafa, asrif. Here's all of these are the imperative form, and how you could see that they have pretty much a similar pattern. No confusion right there as compared to the irregular verbs that we had done previously. Now let's see the subject, which is the person that is performing the verb. And in this situation, absara, mubsir. All right, now mubsir, in where you've got a kasra and you add a mu instead of a u compared to here. So mubsir. Ahsana muhsin, which is the person that's performing this verb. Akhraja mukhrij. Adkhala mudkhil. أرجع مرجع. أرسل مرسل. أسلم مسلم. Now we're going to talk about, so this is just the person that's performing the verb, and later we'll talk about the translation for these verbs and see how that little slight change and addition onto the conjugation would give me a very new meaning. So let's see the final one, which is called al-masdar, in where at least they chose one of the masdars. This is not all the types of masdars, but there can be different nouns of the verbs for this category. So let's see. Absara, and here ibsar. They chose ibsar as one of the masadar, but there are others, such as tabsira, for example. And let's see, but just a note that this is not the only masdar, but there could be other ones as well. So absara, ibsar. Ahsana, ihsan. Akhraja, ikhraj. Adkhala, idkhal. Arja'a, irja'. Arsala, irsal. So you could see just that pattern right there, but again, this is not the only pattern. These are just at least one of those. Let's see what the meanings are. So absara, remember that hamza coming in for basara. Basara would mean that sight, but absara would mean that entered into citing, so meaning what they realized. If you want to enter into citation, that means you realized, you observed. So right here, absara, observed or cited. Yubsiru, citing or observing or seeing. Now it's very important to mention that when it comes to al-basar, I did mention it before, that when it comes to basar, it's not necessarily always the literal form of it, but there could also be the metaphorical side for basar, which is insight. So absara, where the person not only could see, but also a metaphorical understanding of seeing, which is meaning not with a naked eye, but deep insight, meaning that the person saw more than the surface of something and was able to see deeply inside. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us all deep insight. Yubsiru, the person is seeing or observing, but remember, there's also a metaphorical side to it with insight. Absir, now you're giving imperative, you're telling him to see, look, watch. Mubsir, the person is seeing, is capable of seeing. And sometimes it will be referred to those that are actually blind, and it is more just a form of respect. Well, they will call somebody that is blind and call them mubsir, even though they're actually blind. But the reason why many times this can be used is in Lugha Arabiya, there's also, if a person was bit by a snake, they will actually call him Salim, that he's safe, he's cured, he's healed. And that's a form of hope in putting in that that optimism, even though they're actually blind, or in that sense they're actually poisoned. Somebody's asking where they can get the book. You could just Google 80 Quran words and you'll get all the PDFs for it. Ibsar is the noun of the verb absara. So in this situation, ibsar is basically the actual, how could we say it, but the actual method or the actual way and usage for helping you see things. One thing is that you can have a number of different masadar, a number of different nouns for the verbs, such as tabsira. Tabsira would also mean something else, and where tabsira comes from the root absara or basara, and also tabsira would actually be that actual process of helping others observe. All right, tabsira or basira. basira, also another basira would also be another noun of the verb or a masdar, in where basira is insight. And let's go ahead for ahsana. Ahsana comes from the root hasana, right? Hasana or hasina, right? Ahsana, ahsana would mean that they were perfecting, all right? So perfecting. So here, to do exactly, it's actually called perfecting. But sometimes, I don't blame them. Sometimes you could just lose those words. They could just slip your mind. So here, ahsana would mean perfected. Yuhsinu, perfecting. Ahsan, perfect. You're giving him an order. Muhsin, muhsin is more a perfectionist. Muhsin, perfectionist, doing things in a perfect way. Ihsan is perfection. Or slash, ihsan can also mean treating kindly. In other words, you're perfecting your manner, your behavior in treating in a kind way. And muhsin is the person that is a perfectionist or that is treating people kindly. So just to keep a note is that here, to do good in treating kindly, or to do exactly, which is perfect. To do exactly is actually perfect. All right. So another word for it. I didn't do this packet, so sometimes, I would have to probably give a different meaning and disagree with some of the things that they had said, but that's okay. Akhraja, it does not mean that they did not do an outstanding job. If they wouldn't have done an outstanding job, I would not have directed you to this packet. Akhraja actually comes from the root kharaja. Kharaja means to exit. Akhraja means that they had exited or isolated. So sometimes akhraja can mean to isolate, ostracize, and can also mean to exit. All right, so here we go. Exit, ostracize, isolate. All right, exit, ostracize, or isolate. And that would be akhraja. So in the past tense, which is this tense, isolated, ostracized, or exited. Yukhriju, isolating, ostracizing, and exiting. So there we go with the future tense. Now let's go ahead with akhrij. Now you're giving an imperative and telling the person ostracize, isolate, and exit, meaning take out. All right? And Mukhrij is basically the person that isolated, the person that exited, the person that ostracized. Here, ikhraj is the actual, isolation, ostracizing, what do they call it? And exit for ikhraj is, well, that would be more of a makhraj, would be more the exit, makhraj, and that would be the ism maf'ul, makhraj. So here mukhraj is the person that's exiting, and makhraj, which is ism maf'ul in this situation, would be the exit. Okay, the exit. But so the difference is really makhraj would mean the exit with a fatha on the ra, and mukhraj is the person that's exiting, right? Ikhraj is the actual exit, I guess, the actual exit, and where it is more, when the actual exit is going to be production, I guess. It's going to be what you're bringing forth, and ikhraj, the final exit, the final to leave something finally, or let's see, adkhala, and that comes from the root dakhala. All right, dakhala, to enter. So here, what we're going to be doing, adkhala, there is there's that force, in where adkhala, there's the force. And here's another meaning for the hamza. Several meanings for the hamza is, one, to enter something, to put force into something. All right, so here we go. Akhraja could also mean to put force in it. And here, adkhala, put a force to enter something, to penetrate something. Okay, to make enter, which is to penetrate. Okay, adkhala, penetrated or entered. يدخل, entering or penetrating. أدخل, أدخل, which is you're telling him enter. مدخل, مدخل, the person that's entering. All right. إدخال is basically the actual enter or penetration. And let's see, let's go أرجع, أرجع, which comes from the root رجع. All right, let's see it right there. رجع, رجع. And here أرجع, you're asking him to put a force in this verb رجع. And أرجع, you're telling him, أرجع. It can be that you're actually telling the person to, or here أرجع means that the person returned. So instead of just say send back, instead of saying send back, you can actually say return. Okay, so here أرجع, returned. يرجع, returning. أرجع, you're asking the person and giving imperative, telling him to return something. مرجع, which is the person that's returning. Again, so this is the person. All these would be the imperative, giving that order. Okay, let's remember these. This is the future / present tense, and this would be the past. All right, and this would be the noun of the verb. Noun of verb. We did that before. And irja is the actual, irja is the actual return. So the actual return, which is the noun of that verb. Let's move on right here. And arsala, arsala, meaning that the person sent. Sent, because this is a past tense, sent. Yursil, sending. Sending, yursil. And arsal, you're giving an imperative and telling him to send. Mursal, which is the person, the sender, basically, the person that's sending. Irsal, irsal is basically the sending, if you can say that. Irsal is the sending process, or sending. All right, asrafa, asrafa, to exceed. To exceed, and here, because it's in the past tense, exceeded. So any limit that you exceed, is basically called israf. It doesn't matter what type of an excess you're putting in. It could be an excess in a behavior, it could be an excess in money, it could be an excessive usage in probably calories, or an excessive usage in force, whatever it is, and that would be called israf. All right, that would be israf, which is the actual excess that you're putting in. Now we go for asrafa, that they had exceeded. Yusrifu, exceeding. Asrif, you're asking him to exceed in the amount of usage. Okay, and musrif is basically the person that's exceeding, and israf is the actual excess of or extravagance in doing a particular behavior. Right? So here we go for asrafa. Aslama comes from the root salima, and the root salima would actually mean to be at peace, and it also, salima is to be secure, safe, and salima would also mean to be healed. All right, so aslama would mean to enter in healing, or entered in healing, entered in security, entered in safety, etc. And it can also be aslama, meaning that since they entered in security, now they're feeling that relaxation, now they're feeling that they are surrendering, and that's basically it. All right, yuslim would mean, it would actually mean a number of things, but it depends on the context. All right, so yuslim can mean to, and by the way, let me also note on the word aslama here, because although yes, to enter in peace, to enter all the different things that I had mentioned, it can also mean to enter in Islam. All right, to enter in Islam. So the a would also be that to enter. Remember when we said about the it can mean to put force, it can mean to enter something. So here aslama would also mean that he entered Islam. Entered Islam, just like asbaha entered subh, which is basically morning. So aslama would mean to enter Islam. Yuslim to, because the word salima would mean to secure, to be free, to etc. It also yuslim could also mean to enter Islam, and could also mean to surrender, and could also mean to be safe and to be secure. So wow, look at that. So to be safe and secure. So here we go. Let's do it there. Secure. And it can also, yuslim can also mean to surrender, yuslim, and yuslim can also mean to enter Islam. Okay, to enter the religion of Islam. Well, meaning, yeah. Okay, so you could see those different sides to it, and each and every single one would have a different meaning. All right, aslim meaning enter Islam or surrender, or again, be secure. Okay, so surrender, be secure, or enter Islam. It's the three words that we just noted before. Muslim can be the person that is Muslim, the person that surrendered, and the person that is secured. All right, Islam is basically basically the religion of Islam, and Islam can be the actual submission. All right, that the person is actually the actual submission, and Islam can also mean the actual surrender. So now we're talking about the noun of the verb for that particular tense. Let's go on and see ashraka on the other hand. And I wonder how many times does aslama or salima actually go in the Quran. Let's just go into the Quran really quick and actually see how many times that root comes in the Quran, shall we? Salima. So the words, just the root, salima, occurs 14 times here, it said. I'm not sure why they put 72, even though it doesn't occur that many times. And I've put aslama, it occurred 18 times. So, okay. And you could see aslama in a number of words or a number of ayat in the Quran. So here, ولكن قولوا أسلمنا يمنون عليك أن أسلموا فمن أسلم فله أسلموا أكون أول المسلمين الذين أسلموا النبيون الذين أسلموا. So you've got a number of aslama in the Quran. All right, so let's see ashraka on the other hand. Ashraka, right? Let's see the word ashraka. It appeared 24 times. So for those that are relativists and postmodernists that don't want to hear, the different patterns. But, in the Quran, there's the shirk and there's the Islam. So ashraka would mean to enter one. It would mean to enter shirk, and which is the actual paganism slash associating partners with God Almighty. And it can also mean to associate partners. So partners in general, regardless of whether that is with God or whether that is with other things around us, that would still be considered as ashraka. So any form of associating partners, associating more than one thing with one possession would be considered, well, don't call it shirk, but it would be considered as a form of shirk. Okay, not aqidah wise. So don't say if we have more than one partner and shareholders in a business, that makes us mushrikeen. No, it's the word shirk can be the noun, can be the actual shirk, meaning the religious aqidah form of it, in where you're associating partners with God, and it can also be associating partners with real life matters. Okay, so here ashraka would be ashraka to, if the context is referring to speaking about God Almighty. In that situation, it would be that they are they have entered in associating partners with God Almighty. All right. And if it went ashraka to mean, having more than one partner, meaning that they actually had partnered with. So ashraka, partnered with. So I could say, I'm going to partner you and I'm going to ask you to, share something or, get involved in a certain matter. That would be ashraka. I shared something with you. Okay, ashraka. So shared in general. Okay, and then the context would tell me if it's talking about sharing in the understanding of God or whether it's in with with our relationships with people. Yushrik would in that situation would be sharing, yushrik, sharing. And then again, you're going to look at the context, whether it's talking about sharing with people or sharing or associating that type of shared sharing between God Almighty and referring to God Almighty. Ashrik would mean share. You're telling the person to share. Mushrik, and again, if it's referring to a person that's associating partners with God Almighty, that would mean somebody that is, polytheist, somebody that shares an understanding of God, that there's more than one God, that is partnering on different things in their understanding of how many gods there are, and where they have some kind of a shared ownership, shared control, shared authority over such and such matter. Mushrik, so it can be referring to the person that is sharing in their understanding of God, meaning a polytheist, and it can also be the mushrik, meaning the person that's also a partner in this sharehold. All right. Ishraq can actually be the actual noun of the verb of that, polytheism, and can also be the actual form of making partners in general. All right, so making partners, just keep that in mind. Let's go on with the other verb, asbaha. Asbaha would be the root sabaha. All right, sabaha would mean that the person had mourned. Well, not okay. I'll take that back, because to mourn would mean that you're, giving condolences for a dead person. But here, asbaha, entered into mourning. All right. So even sabaha would actually mean the actual that they woke up and it's morning, and asbaha would mean that the person entered into the morning. In other words, it all of a sudden, it's like, in Arabic, there's a lot of scenario type of wording, in where you could see that asbaha as if it's a theater, and the person entered in this huge theater of life, in which is now the scene is they entered into a morning scene. That would be asbaha. So asbaha can also mean became, and asbaha can mean entered morning. So asbaha, became or entered morning. Yusbihu, becoming, because it's in future present tense. Yusbihu, becoming or going into morning. All right. And asbah, you're telling the person to become, and asbah could also mean you're asking him to enter the morning, meaning to wake up. Musbih, the person that's waking up. And the musbih, or the person that's becoming. So when something turns into something, it's becoming into something new. And that's where, even for every morning, just think of isbah, just think of that morning is a new day, it's a new morning, it's a new becoming, it's a new thing. That's where asbah comes in. Isbah الإصباح is the morning itself. الإصباح, the morning. أصلح, أصلح is basically one, to become good. Now remember that the hamza is entering something. The root is salaha. The root is salaha. Salaha means became good, and salaha could also mean to fit, and could also mean to reconcile. All right, so to fit, to reconcile, to make good. All right, to fit, let's put on all these words. Reconcile, okay, reconcile, and fit, and also to, or fix. Sometimes it can also mean to fix. And salaha could also mean to become good. So we'll just put it good right here. All right, so here, yuslih or aslaha, reconciled, fixed, and bettered. Is that even a word? Made good. All right. Yuslih, reconciled, reconciling. So it's in the past and future tense. Reconciling, fixing, and becoming better. Becoming better. Yuslih, the person is becoming better. So all these terms, just keep in mind. Aslih, aslih, you're asking him to reconcile, to fix, or to become better. The muslih is the person that is making that reconciliation between people, fixing, and muslih is the person that's also the person that's actually being good, righteous person. Yep, righteous person. Islah is reconciliation, or the person. Oh no, well, wait a minute. Let me fix that. Okay, now let me do islah for that. Islah would be reconciliation, and islah could also be the actual fixing, and islah could also be righteousness. Well, that would be more salah. Salah would be righteousness. See, look at that. So salah would be righteousness. Salah. Islah would more be reconciliation, and would also mean that process. It would be more an adjective, adverb, the actual process of bettering something. Islah. All right, so any questions about box 27? Any questions about box 27? Nope. All right, let's go for box 28. And here's box 28. Let's see, and we're pretty much at the same kind of a pattern, right? Are we? Yes, we are. So good news. It's really easy. Same pattern in where أعرض is like أفعل, and يعرض is the present tense of it, or the future tense of it. يفعل, يبصر. أعرض is the imperative form. أفعل. So we're still at the same pattern as before, but just extra new words. Mu'rid is the person, and i'rad is the noun of that verb or the masdar. Let's go on, and we're just at the same pattern but new words. A'rada, here to turn away, to backslide. Well, a'rada would mean to turn away, and can also, so let me put it right here, can also mean to isolate. No, what does it? Not to isolate, but more a'rada, to a'rada, where you're turning away, you're isolating yourself away from something. So a'rada would actually come from the root a'rada. Arada would object. Okay, arada, object. So a'rada, where the person is objecting, therefore they're turning away. All right, yu'rid is basically turning away or objecting. Yu'rid, objecting or turning away. All right, a'rid, you're basically telling him turn away, object. أعرض عن هذا. أعرض عن هذا meaning turn away, object to it, reject it, go away. And معرض, the person that's objecting, and the person, al-i'rad is the objection itself or the actual turning away. Al-i'rad. Most of the times in the Quran when it's talking about al-i'rad or the the turning away, it's usually referring to that rejection. It's usually referring to in where isolating yourself from a certain matter. So al-i'rad or isolating yourself or taking a different stance that is different from the rest. All right. أغرق actually comes from the root غرق. Right? غارقة. غرق or غارقة. All right. أغرق is basically to drown. أغرق, drown. But here's one thing, is that sometimes أغرق could mean to drown literally in water, and can also be the metaphorical side of al-ighraq, meaning to, it's like you're putting somebody in a landfill where you're just mounting them in a bunch of things. So aghraqa could also mean to put a lot of load on that person. Okay, so aghraqa could mean to drown, or it could also mean to load, which is the metaphorical side of drowning. To load, you're putting lots of water on a person, or you're probably putting lots of loads on a person where they're feeling like, that's it, I'm drowned in this. All right, that's the metaphorical side. يغرق, and here يغرق, and the present tense of it, يغرق, drowning, or again excessive, to put an excess of something on, So here يغرق, you're actually excessively putting a bunch of stuff. It could be problems, it could be challenges, it could be so many different things, and then as if they're drowning in it. They can't breathe. They don't even have any chance of finding any airway out of this whole load that's on them. أغرق, you're asking them to do that. You're asking the person to do all the things that I had mentioned. مغرق, the person that's actually doing this, the person that's actually loading, drowning others, etc. إغراق, the actual load. No, wait a minute. Let me correct that. الإغراق is the actual loading, is the actual drowning. The actual drowning meaning the drowning itself. All right? أفسد. Let's go for أفسد. This is a very common word. What time is it? I got 20 minutes or 15 minutes left. 20 or 15? Okay. أفسد comes from the root فسد. And the root فسد actually means, one, to make something rotten, and could also mean أفسد or فسد, to ruin, and can also mean to corrupt. Right? To corrupt. So when we say أفسد, meaning that there was a force that made that become rotten, or that made that ruin happen, or that corrupted. So corrupted, ruined, made something go rotten. يفسد, meaning corrupted or corrupting, because يفسد is corrupting. And it doesn't have to be corrupt in morality, because yufsidu can also mean to corrupt in the materials around you as well. So anything that you take it out of the pattern or what it was designed for is considered fasad. So if you actually use something in a way that it was not designed, it was not intended to be for that particular thing, then that's considered fasad. That's considered that you're corrupting it, you're harming it. And here also another word for fasad is harm, in where you're harming it, you're corrupting it, you're creating it to become rotten, you're making it becoming rotten, you're making it lose making it lose its purpose. And this is something when we talk about fasad. So in behaviors, if you're letting certain behaviors or certain manners go in a different direction that's making those actual things lose the purpose that they were created for, that's called fasad. All right, that's called fasad. That's basically called corruption. That's basically called you're making things go rotten. The purpose that they were intended for is now getting lost, and this is going to create chaos. All right, so here, afsid, and you're actually asking him, or well, yeah, him, because it's mudhakkar here, asking him to corrupt, to harm. And mufsid is the person that's causing harm, the person that's creating the corruption, that's ruining. Ifsad is because there's fasad and there's fasad, and there's a difference. So the fasad is the actual corruption, all right, the actual corruption, and the ifsad is that corruption that you're causing, the corruption that you're causing, or that is being caused. All right, so the difference between ifsad and fasad is that fasad is the actual corruption, and the ifsad is that stance, that effort, that is being put in making this corruption happen. All right, and aflaha, and of course fasad is the opposite of salah or aslaha. Well, yeah, ifsad is the opposite of islah. Here we go. And fasada is the opposite of salaha. So look at this. When you look at, remember when we did the word aslaha and we said to fix, to reconcile, to be righteous, and it, all that. Same thing right here. So this is the total opposite. And where to reconcile, in for the word aslaha, to corrupt and cause harm, is the opposite of aslaha. To do the righteous thing, in other words, to do the right thing, is the opposite of harming. All right, the opposite of ruining. All right, so when we look at that, this is the total opposite, and this is taqabul. All right, this is taqabul right there. Aflaha. Let's go ahead and see what aflaha would mean. Aflaha would mean, and it actually comes from the root falaha. The falaha actually means to succeed. All right, aflaha, enter in success. Here we go. Here's that hamza bringing in a new meaning. And here, to enter in success. Aflaha, entered in success, since it's in the past tense. Yuflih, the person, yuflih is basically entering in success. Aflih, imperative, asking him to enter in success and do the right thing. Right? Muflih is basically, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us from those that are muflihin, those that are successful. People that are successful, the person that's successful. Iflah, it's actually falah. Al-falah is success. Al-iflah is basically, let's say, how can we say it? Al-iflah is the actual thing that you do in order to make something successful. But falah is success. Falah itself is success. Anbata, and here anbata means to grow, right? But oftentimes it can also mean to grow hair, to grow plants, to grow, anything that you're growing is actually comes from the root nabata, which means to grow. So it can be, like I said, anbata means to grow hair, to grow plants, etc. And that would be nabata. Anbata would mean grew, right? It grew. And then the context is going to tell me whether it's referring to plants or other things. Yunbitu, growing, or planting or growing. Anbit, you're asking him to grow. Munbit, and munbit is more the person that has reached Of course, when they grow hair, that means they are munbit, meaning that they have reached the age of puberty. So they are grown. All right, munbit, the person that is growing, or the person that has actually grew, meaning that they have grown their hair and now they're adults. All right, munbit. Al-inbat is the actual growing. Al-inbat, and can also be the planting, and can also be al-inbat can also be the actual growing, meaning that the actual growing can also mean have reached the age of puberty. Anzara, anzara, meaning comes from the root nadhara, warned. Anzara, put an effort to warn. Remember that hamza, that's why we're adding to put an effort. Yunzir is basically warning. Anzir, warn. Munzir, the person that's warning. Inzar is the actual warning. Anzala, anzala, to send down. Anzala, to send down. Or actually comes from the root nazala. All right, nazala is the root. Nazala, to come down, but anzala, there was an effort to make it come down. There was an effort to make it come down. That's what that hamza is making, that additional term, that additional not term, but additional meaning. Yunzil, yunzil, meaning coming down, bringing down, sending down. Anzil, you're asking him to send down. Munzil, the person that's sending down. Al-inzal, al-inzal is okay, there are different meanings to it, but al-inzal is the actual revelation, to reveal. Al-inzal, the actual revelation, and or the actual sending down. In fiqh, it has a different meaning. In fiqh, it actually means ejaculation. Ansha'a, ansha'a, and it does come from Lugha Arabiya, just a note. Ansha'a, it would mean, comes from the root nasha'a. Okay, nasha'a. Nasha'a would mean, to upbring. So here, or nasha'a, yeah, nasha'a, they were brought. But here, to upbring, we're talking about, the actual upbringing when you're growing and etc. So here, ansha'a could mean to upbring, and could also mean, ansha'a can also mean to design. All right, ansha'a could also mean to design. So ansha'a, designed or brought. Do we actually say brought? I'm not really sure. Yunshi'u is designing or upbringing. Yunshi'u. Or here, to produce and create. Well, create, design. Okay. Sorry, I usually don't look at the meanings here. By the way, I am a native Arabi, so my mother tongue is also Arabi. Anshi, create. Anshi, you're asking the person to create or to design or to produce or to upbring. Munshi is the actual person that's designing. Munshi, the person that's designing, the person that's creating, the person that's upbringing. Insha is the design itself. Insha is the actual creation, the actual designing, the actual upbringing. An'ama, and this is in our day and age, we usually don't see the word ni'am or ni'ma. All we see is the evil side of things. Okay, so an'ama comes from the root na'ima, and an'ama would mean that there was a force that was put. Remember, the a would either mean to enter in something, or could also mean to put a force. So here, an'ama, put a force to bring about the ni'am. What is the ni'am? It's basically the blessing. To bless someone. So here, an'ama, blessed, An'ama, bring good things, and blessed. Yun'am is to bless, and blessing, to bless, yeah. An'am, you're asking him to bless. Mun'am is the person and the one that's bringing the blessing. In'am or ni'ma, another ni'ma is the actual blessing, and in'am is the process of bringing the blessing. Anfaqa, anfaqa is different than anfaqa. Let's see, we're going to erase all this. Anfaqa means to spend. So anfaqa comes from the root nafaqa. Okay, anfaqa, and it's different than munafiq, by the way. It's different than that root. Anfaqa means to spend, anfaqa, and here anfaqa, because it's in the past tense, spent. Yunfiqu, spending. Yunfiqu, spending. And anfiq, you're asking him to spend. Munfiq is the person that is spending. Al-infaq is basically the support, the financial support that you put in. Al-infaq is this financial support, the spending that you put in to spend on something. Al-infaq. And many times it's referred when we talk about al-infaq or al-nafaqa. Al-nafaqa is actually speaking of child support. You know, when you're spending on the child and the money that you put to spend on the child, or even on the wife, Ankara, ankara, and here comes from the root nakara, and which is to deny, but nakara could mean to deny, and nakara could also mean not to recognize. In where something is not familiar, couldn't recognize it. Okay, so ankara there, and ankara actually means not to deny or not recognize, but ankara could also mean to reject. Okay, to refuse, to reject. So here ankara, rejected, denied, or didn't recognize. Three things: rejected, denied, or did not recognize. All right, and yunkir, rejecting, denying, and couldn't recognize or not being able to recognize. Ankir, you're asking him to reject, you're asking him to deny, you're asking him to not recognize or refuse. Munkir, which is the person that's rejecting, the person that's denying, the person that's not recognizing. Il-inkar, rejection, denial, and in that situation, basically not recognizing, which is another form of rejection. Last line right there. I was hoping to do 3 today, but it's okay. And ahlaka comes from the root halaka. Halaka. And the root halaka can mean destroyed, or can be dead, meaning destroy, dead. And here the hamza, ahlaka, meaning that the person put an effort to destroy, to cause, to probably kill somebody, or to probably corrupt something. And yuhlik, the person that is destroying, yuhlik is actually destroying, because muhlik is the person that's destroying. Yuhlik is destroying or destructing. Ahlik, you're asking him to destroy or to destruct. Muhlik is the person that's destroying, and ihlak is the destruction itself. Okay, ihlak is the destruction itself. And we definitely don't want to end with halak, but we can probably, let me just see, atamma. We could at least, be hopeful and just add the word atamma, that we won't feel like we ended with destruction. Atamma, complete. Atamma comes from the root tamma, which means complete, and atamma, put an effort to complete. Yutimmu, completing. Atmim, complete and fulfill. Mutim, the person that's completing and fulfilling. Itmam is the actual completion. Yes, we want to be hopeful. We want to be optimistic. We don't want to end with halak. Let's end with tamam. And let's end with tamam, meaning with completion. And jazakumullah khairan, everyone. If there are any questions, we'll be happy to answer them, inshallah. Any questions before we end? And jazakumullah khairan, I had a lot of people sending messages asking about my health, and jazakumullah khairan, everybody was asking, everybody was showing care, and jazakumullah khairan, everybody. I wasn't able to respond to all the messages that were coming to me. Allah barik fikum jami'an, jazakumullah khairan. Yes, a perfect way to end. We always want to be optimistic. We don't want to feel like halak and destruction, and that's the end of us. No, we want to end with completion, even though we didn't complete, but we can be hopeful, we can be optimistic, and we can even end it with even more beautiful thing and put it with love. Ahabba, love, and yuhib, and muhib, and all that. Maybe we should have noticed that one as well, so we could end it with love, inshallah. And we'll see you all next week. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. And this is actually real. This does actually mean to love. Assalamu alaikum.